Well, my friends, we're back with another, do you have a word?
Splendiferous episode of V8 Radio.
Splendiferous?
Splendiferous. And that, Kevin, is probably the most accurate adjective we've ever given on the show, as it means informal and humorous.
Wow. And I didn't know we were either one of those.
I think one guy said so, maybe.
Right. Well, that's better than being non-splendiferous.
True. Very true.
Right. All right. Well, I'm Kevin Oosty, joined as always by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Mike Cueball Clark. And this episode's a little bit different because I was a bonehead and forgot some of my audio recording gear, so we're trying different technology, which is going to sound a little different. Do not attempt to adjust your device.
We are in full control.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but at least we're rolling. That's the important part.
Right on.
Yeah. So, for those who are familiar with our V8 radio experience, we typically start off each episode with some form of a trivia question, generally automotive related. And, yeah. And I will say, although we did get some good feedback on our last episode about the show being informative and perhaps entertaining. Mm-hmm. I personally want to apologize for how long we kind of dragged out the the trivia question part of the show.
That's not your fault.
Well,
not at all.
It was my fault a little bit. And
you asked the question, but I hemmed and hawed for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, I must admit that the Richard the Hawk question or whatever it was, happy to Hawk, was kind of a kick in the nuts. So, I do have a question that I know you're not going to get and you wouldn't be happy about, but I'm not that kind of guy to actually use it.
You're a nice guy. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, I think maybe I'll just hold on to that one.
For when you're really mad at me or something.
Well, see, our listener Paul, our buddy Paul, had pointed out, he's like, yeah, you owe him for that one.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. Because that was, that's like asking Michael Jordan a question about Air Jordan shoes and he gets it wrong. You're asking me Buick stuff, so.
That's true. I thought that you would have known it. That's why I asked it. I didn't think it was going to be that harsh of a question, so my apologies.
Yeah. It's okay. I learned. I looked at it as a learning experience. So.
Okay, good.
Yeah. All right. So, do you have one prepared for this week?
Yes, sir. I do. And I'm moving away from Buick and going to go towards our friends at Chrysler Corp.
Oh boy.
Yeah, good times. All right. As you know, Kevin, in 1968, Dodge had a lineup of muscle cars that they called the Scat Pack. Yeah. And Plymouth had the same group called the Rapid Transit System. Yeah, Rapid Transit System.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The 68 Dodge muscle cars consisted of what cars?
In the Scat Pack?
Yes.
Well, you could get a Dodge Dart. You could get a Dodge Charger. You could get a Dodge, 68. I know it was definitely Dart and Charger. The Challenger didn't come out until later. Boy, I was just not thinking Mopar, and this is putting me on the spot. Oh, there was a Dodge, there's a B body in there, so maybe one of the Super Bs, because the Roadrunner's a Plymouth.
Right.
So those three are my initial guesses.
So the Charger, the Dart, and the Super B.
Yes.
Okay. Duly noted, my friend.
Yeah, if I get this wrong, I'm going to feel like a big putz, too. But really, my mind was very contextual, and I was not in this context.
Oh, I gotcha. I'm rarely in any type of context, which is why I get all of mine wrong.
Yeah. And interestingly, I also have a Mopar-themed trivia question for you.
Oh, who's the lucky boy?
Yeah, how about that?
How about that?
And as you know, in the mid 1980s, our friends at the Chrysler Corporation were playing with your buddy Carroll Shelby.
Uh-huh.
And they created a couple of very interesting little cars. One of them was based on the Dodge Omni platform.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little black car called the GLH. Do you remember that?
I kind of do, yeah.
Yes, the Dodge Shelby GLH, and then also the GLH-S Turbo. And it looked like an Omni. It was a four-door Connie box, and it was just not attractive. But it had some power, a little turbo 2.2 motor in the GLH-S. And there was a famous article in Hot Rod magazine where they raced one against an actual original 65 GT350 Mustang, and the GLH-S beat it in the quarter mile.
That hurts.
So the trivia question is, what does GLH stand for?
God dang it. GLH. Isn't that a product for bald guys called Great Looking Hair?
Could be. It was not a GLC being a great looking car by any stretch.
Great Looking Hatch. GLH.
All right. Okay. Great looking hatch.
See how I didn't drag that out this time?
You didn't, and I really wanted to drag mine out because I'm going through everything in my mind right now saying you're an idiot. All right.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you. If anything pops into your head before the 30-minute mark, I'll let you throw it down there.
Ooh, right on.
Because I'm a nice guy.
You are a nice guy.
No Googling allowed.
I can't even Google. My laptop is fried. We're recording this on phones, and I've got nothing. So I couldn't Google if I wanted to.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I'll do that. So, good. So your final answer, great looking hatch.
Great looking hatch.
Okay. So, that is duly noted. And, what the heck else is going on?
Shoot, man. I haven't done diddly squat to my engine since the last time we talked.
Oh, man.
I was out of town for a week. I won a trip from my company to go fishing for a week up in Canada. So,
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was just the decompressing getaway I needed. It was fantastic. So caught a lot of fish, had a lot of fun, good times.
That's
but
killer.
No car work was done.
No. It's hard to do that while you're fishing.
True.
Yeah. But that's all right.
Yeah. But I've been watching this last muscle car of the week. That Shelby Series 1 was pretty neat little car.
That was a heck of a car, and I don't know if you remember in the late 90s when those were being produced. Shelby's got this interesting kind of love-hate relationship with his fans throughout the different time periods of history, so everybody loved him in the 60s. And then in the 80s, when he was doing cars like that GLH, everybody kind of hated him because they're like, what is this garbage?
Right.
And then he kind of dabbled in some other stuff, but when it came time to do the Series 1, a lot of people looked at it as just a chance for a Shelby money grab to try and, put his name on something and get money out of it. But, really that couldn't be farther from the truth because he invested a bunch of cash, as did others, into that Series 1 project. It wasn't just what, again, many people thought happened later with some of the Mustangs, again, from the 2000s, where it was a Shelby Series Mustang that really didn't have much done to it, but it had the name, so they charged a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So the bigger part of that story that we didn't get into on Muscle Car of the Week is that the federal government was a big player in that car from the standpoint of, in order to make a production vehicle, which is what he was trying to do, he needed to have certifications done so that it passed smog and crash standards.
Right.
And in order to do that, you got to spend millions of dollars to have independent testing and everything else. And the kicker is that you could be crash certified, but they do it by model year. And the standard, if you change the car or a certain amount of time goes by, that standard goes away and you have to reapply and do it again.
Oof.
So Shelby had some investors when they were doing the Series 1, and they had some problems, like any car does that is being made by, enthusiasts essentially. And during the time period, the company went bankrupt that was kind of the parent company. So Shelby pulled resources together to buy it out of bankruptcy for pennies on the dollar and continue the car. But when that happened, the certification certificate didn't stick, and he didn't have the money to recertify it all. So they got around that by selling the last however many, I think 60 or 80 cars without the engine and transmission. So they were technically kit cars.
Ah.
And
Nice loophole.
Yeah, it was a total loophole, but then everybody's like, there already are Shelby kit cars that they call them 427 Cobras, and a lot of people didn't like those either. So now they thought he was kind of dropping to this level of you build it Shelby's. And there's always this little stank of, bankruptcies are suspect to begin with in certain businesses because it's like, well, what really happened there? Is this something snaky going on? Oh, snaky, sorry.
Snaky, nice. Well played, nicely done.
Some snaky going on or not, and so all that became the big story of the car, and unfortunately, the car itself kind of stepped out of the limelight because people were too busy talking about the gossip. And the other, kind of black eye against those cars was that he was working with GM at the time, and it had that old Aurora engine, which was a pretty cool engine until you had to work on one.
Sure.
And that's the one that famously has the starter mounted underneath the intake manifold.
Oh yeah, it's just like a North Star.
Right. It's a small displacement North Star, essentially. Yeah. And those were great concepts that proved to be troublesome on the street eventually. So that reputation had kind of preceded that engine, and people were like, yeah, we're not so sure about those. And then, of course, the interior being essentially Pontiac Firebird and Oldsmobile Aurora pieces. It looked very GM plastic, and that was a bummer.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential in there to really create a really nice interior in that car. Yeah, that mid-90s plastic stuff was really, really pretty awful stuff, I think.
Yeah. But at the time, again, you didn't have rapid prototyping. You didn't have 3D printing. You didn't have the stuff that an individual can do today. So he did with what he could without putting a whole bunch of money in the cockpit, because the chassis was really pretty killer.
Right.
It was an all aluminum chassis that was a combination of tubing and rails plus some sheets, and then the whole thing was kind of heat treated. I don't want to call it like a furnace braze, but it was a heat treated process to put rigidity back into the welded structure, and utilized some Corvette suspension and brake parts. And I drove that Series 1, not much, just kind of around the parking lot a little bit, basically moving it around. And I will tell you, feeling a very lightweight car like that has power is just fun, and it revved up real nice, and it sounded great, and it had killer brakes. And all of a sudden, I didn't really care about the Trans Am dashboard and kind of the fact that I didn't really have any room for my feet. But it drove really nice, and like I said, it handled great. And I don't really think that was intended to be a competition car like the Cobras were. It was intended to be a street roadster, and maybe kind of, thumb the nose towards the Viper, because that arrangement had dissipated between Shelby and Dodge at that point. And, kind of a thumb the nose of the Corvette too, in some ways, because he was always fighting against Corvettes his entire career.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it was a neat little deal, and we were trying to look past the shortcomings of the company, you know. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you a parallel. If I'm around in 20 years and this stuff is still cool, we'll be doing an episode just like this on a Tesla.
Oh yeah, you probably will.
Because it's the same thing, you know. It's trying to do something. One guy takes a bunch of money. Public opinion is what it is. But at the end of the day, you got to look at the car and go, that was actually kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, dude, those Tesla P100Ds in the ludicrous mode are ridiculously quick.
They are. They're insane.
It's ludicrous.
It's ludicrous even. It's ludicrous.
Nice. Oh man, that's beautiful.
and I have a good friend who's got two of them. He's got and forgive me, I'm a little slow on my nomenclature of Teslas, but he's got I think an S sedan and maybe a Model X SUV deal, right? Is that what that is?
I think so.
His wife drives that, and he's got a lot of fast cars. I mean, he's got a Hellcat. I think he's on a second Hellcat. He's had a twin turbo all-wheel drive Mercedes, and he swears up and down, you know, that the Tesla is by far the most fun acceleration-wise to drive. You know, it doesn't have the Hellcat, you know, V8 Fury going on, but
right.
Yeah.
But when you can apply full torque instantly, you're in for a heck of a ride, especially on those, the D in the P100D is dual motor. So you got all-wheel drive, front and rear motors in that car. And it grips. Boy, howdy.
Oh, it's wicked. Yeah. And I've always been fascinated with, I like the end result in a lot of ways. And believe me, obviously by watching Muscle Car of the Week, I appreciate original cars and not disturbing that. But at the end of the day, if the goal is to build something that's going to go fast, that's a pretty cool way to do it. And the owner of that I was just talking about, he and I and the guys in our shop have been talking about kind of the best of all worlds for a muscle car guy, and maybe we find a 70 Challenger and get a damaged Tesla with the all-wheel drive and put those two together. And I advanced that to a CUDA, and we'd call it the electric eel, you know.
Nice.
And it would have the power, the instant torque, and, you know, we wouldn't start with a Hemi car or something obvious. Right. We'd start with a 6-cylinder,
a slant 6 car.
Yeah, or even you can get almost a whole Dynacorn CUDA these days. So, we could build something, and he would really love to, because he loves the look of the old car and the performance of the new. And last year at SEMA, I had talked to a gentleman who used a team in Sweden to hack the Tesla operating system.
Oh boy.
And what they were able to do is, they call them power modules, and it's the motor, I think it's the motor, the gearbox, and maybe the battery, or one of the batteries. They're modules. So the four-wheel drive car has two power modules in it that are essentially the same thing. And that's the beauty of his platform, is the middle of the floor, I think, is where all the batteries are. And you can just build whatever wheelbase you want. You could build whatever kind of thing you want on top. You know, it's just like changing out bodies on an RC car, basically.
Yeah, kinda.
And, but the trick was, in order to make one of these things run, you need all the components. So you need the interior body module, you need the steering module, the brake module, all these things are networked together. Mm-hmm. And if it senses there's nothing there, it's not going to work. And that's what these dudes in Sweden hacked, is the ability to control that without having the rest of the car.
That's amazing, because Tesla does not like you doing that.
No.
They are not happy about that. In fact, I watched some YouTube videos of this guy that rebuilds Teslas that are wrecked and they're totaled, and he'll find one in the junkyard and he'll strip the components and he'll build a nice car. However, Tesla will not support that car at all. They will not get any updates. They won't allow the supercharger to function. They won't sell them parts.
Right.
It's amazing. And they keep that really locked down pretty tight.
And the supercharger is the electric recharge station.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not a blower.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what these guys were saying is that Tesla has the ability to turn those cars off. So that guy who rebuilds those, he could be going on the road, and if they're aware of that thing, they can just switch it off from the sky, and he's out of business.
Right.
So these dudes had to get away around just using the hardware essentially and putting their own software in it to make it all come together.
Right.
So we immediately had these conversations about, do you want to build this car? And like all these projects, it comes down to how much do you want to invest in it because it's not going to be cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it would be super ridiculous either. I think you could get something that drives that maybe isn't very pretty, fairly economically. And, of course, if you're going to do it though, you're going to make it nice and you're going to want it to look nice too. So, but it would be super cool.
It would be pretty cool. I dig technology and I like bringing together the new with the old to see what you can make out of it. But,
and
pretty slick.
Trevor and Tyler, our technicians at the V8 Speed Resto, were talking about how if the goal is to just make power and go fast, then this is all okay. But then again, at the same time, we deal with people that, if you put an LS motor in something, they get mad. Mm-hmm. So we absolutely would make people mad about, ruining that car by electrifying it.
Right.
Of course, we'd probably turn on a whole different audience and get them excited about it too.
Yeah.
I think the validation would come from your first trip behind the wheel.
Yeah, it sure would. That would turn someone around real quick, I think.
Yeah. And again, with total respect to existing cars and not ruining, something. So that part's really cool. The downside is, and I'm not going to, express a personal opinion either way, but when you look at Elon Musk and the way the business is going, there's a lot of people who are true believers, like the Apple crowd.
Yep.
And they're the ones that put the money down ahead of time, and there's not even a car. Mm-hmm. And then there are those who have more conservative business policies who say that's unethical, and how could you even do that? And then they look at the fact that he's, hemorrhaging what seems to be, not exponential, but increasingly rising amounts of money every month. Mm-hmm. And at some point it's got to end. And the thing that sucks is he's a visionary, whether you dig the car or not. And we need people like that. And I think we need them here in the U.S.
Agreed.
So I'm not excusing how things are going, but I think we need more people to take that risk and push things, for all of us.
Right on.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
There's my, my civics, statement of the day.
There will be a quiz later on, folks.
Yeah, well, recently I've been finding myself, kind of getting, well, I'll tell you what's happening is, fortunately, I did get hired by SEMA again to do some work.
Heck yeah,
right. Yeah. So that's,
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very grateful and excited about doing that. And of course, I want to be in the best form that I can be in to make sure that goes well. Right. And that, they get something that they like and everything goes well. So in preparation, I'm a couple of months out still, but trying to get back into some semblance of better physical condition and trying to be a little mentally sharper and because I'm going to be working for them basically all week straight, which is great, but it's going to require some mental and physical stamina.
Right.
So Monday, like last year, they hired me to do the SEMA reveal again, which is just a super cool event where we'll be showing off, last year we did 15. I don't know how many cars we're going to do this year, but some of the Halo cars that are going into the show, and their builders come up on stage, and we do a quick interview and talk about the car, and it's a chance for the media to get photos and video out before the show starts. Last year they had a band there. It was James Otto, and James is a great mix of kind of a country blues, rock and roll performer, just tremendous chops. And he's a car guy. It's turned into a pretty good friend. This year, there's a female blues singer named ZZ Ward. You might have heard of. She's done some stuff, I think for major network TV on one of the NASCAR Opens, and she's a heck of a guitar player. So I recommend looking her up if you dig blues. And she'll be performing on stage all week, and Monday night. So I get to interact with her, which will be cool.
Dig it.
And then, Tuesday morning, I'm hosting the New Products Breakfast, which is a place where awards are given out to new products from the SEMA show, and that's kind of a banquet style thing. And then Tuesday through Friday, I'll be back in the chair at the SEMA Central stage.
Nice.
Going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, looking forward to that. And then Friday, it all wraps up with an event called the SEMA Cruise, which is where all the cars leave the show to go to the SEMA Ignited event. And a good friend of mine, a guy named Joe Severgandio, who I used to work with, he's been kind of the MC of that over the years. And this year, I get to join him, and we're working that one together.
Oh, terrific.
At SEMA Cruise on Friday. So, yeah, Monday to Friday, man, it's the whole time. So in my quest to sharpen up, if you will, I've been doing a lot of walking at night.
Oh, good.
Fast, kind of brisk walking. And to pass the time, I've been streaming interviews with people that, I find to be interesting or insightful or influential. And I've done probably 2 weeks of every Neil Peart interview there is. And Neil
is that right?
The drummer from Rush.
Right.
And, he's one of these guys, who is or was, basically the best at what he did. Granted, there's other drummers that are equal or better, but to generalize, Neil's top of the game.
Oh yeah. For a long time.
Yes, right. And very disciplined and very methodic and knew he wanted to achieve that level. But the dimension of Neil that I never knew about was that being a rock and roll star has consequences. You're in the public eye, and he pointed out that touring, and Rush toured for years and years and years. Mm-hmm. Touring is actually pretty boring, because you got your stage show for 3 hours, 3.5 hours, and then you break down and you do nothing and travel to another city. And then everybody else sets it up, and then you go do your show again. So in the downtime, in the 80s, what Neil would do is he got a bicycle. And he would go out, and when the tour bus arrived in the city and they were starting to set up the show, he would go ride out in the country and just see stuff.
Oh, right on. That's pretty cool.
It was cool, and it was his way to kind of find some solitude, and then he'd come back and play a show. Well, in the 90s, that evolved into motorcycle riding. So his fuel, obviously he's passionate about being this incredible drummer, but for him to escape and clear his mind and reconnect with the world was, he had a tour bus that had a trailer, and the trailer had his motorcycle and eventually a partner motorcycle. He had a riding partner. And what they would do is he'd play the show, and they'd go to sleep, and he'd sleep on the bus. The bus would normally leave town and go up the road to a rest stop or something, and then they'd sleep. And the first thing in the morning, he'd get up, go to the trailer, unhitch the bike, and would ride to the next city.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and he became more excited about the space in between the shows than the shows themselves. And he loved the shows, but for him, his mental growth and kind of therapy came from riding place to place. The first year he went 55,000 miles on a motorcycle.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Ended up going from northern North America, Canada, all the way down through South America. He was, riding in countries when nobody, he tells one story. He went, 4 days in a row without anybody speaking English in South America.
Oh boy.
And the challenge is he has to be at the show, at the very minimum an hour in advance for the sound check and all the rest of it, and practice. So he can't not miss a show.
Right.
And when they were doing their European tour, he was riding in Europe and in Africa and in Asia and places where, you don't normally even think to vacation, and still never missed a show.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's got, so I thoroughly recommend, he ended up writing 5 books about, his life doing this kind of stuff. A couple of them are about motorcycling, and another one about bicycling, another one about just being a musician and being, drummer and all the rest of it. But he has some really cool things to say because he's also the lyricist for the band. He writes all the words. And he said, a lot of these musicians, they achieve a level of fame and they get further removed from their audience because they're up on stage. And he said, how can you write a song about, the everyman if you're not connected with the everyman?
Good point.
So, yeah. And he was the guy then who would be in the gas station asking directions, asking about a good restaurant, where's a good hotel, talking about the motorcycle. And who knows how many thousands of people met him not having any clue who he was.
Yeah. Well, that had to be pretty cool for him as well. A good experience where you get to talk to genuine people who are talking to you just because they think you're a regular guy too, and not because you're Neil Peart from Rush.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's got to be great for him.
Yes, and by nature he's pretty shy. He normally doesn't do interviews. He's not a limelight kind of guy. But he admitted to being an extremist in basically everything he does. So when he was a kid, he loved to read. He read and read and read and read and read. Pretty soon he discovered drums, so he put the books away and became the best drummer in the world, basically. But then he got, finding boredom between tour cities on the bus, and he started reading again. So his goal was to read every book ever written. Well, you can't do that, But
no, you can't.
Kind of literally that was his goal. So he has read every possible subject and every possible, famous author, and not famous either, which just expanded his vocabulary and his intellect. So it's really cool to hear him talk about this stuff because he uses words that you don't use every day, and he uses the meaning of words that you don't necessarily understand.
Like Splendiferous.
Like Splendiferous, which is, if they did another album, that's what the name was. He revealed that. Yeah, he revealed that.
Oh, sweet.
But he talks about the term enthusiasm. It's his goal to inspire somebody to do something based on his drum work, his music, his writings, whatever. His greatest honor is if he inspires somebody to do something, then the flame is passed from him to somebody else. And the term enthusiasm, apparently, according to Neil, actually is a Greek term that means fire of the gods. And if you can spread that fire, you've shared your enthusiasm, and that inspires others. And it's a pretty meaningful concept. And people that share that kind of stuff are good people, So
yeah,
it was great. So here I am, just your local dopey guy marching around his neighborhood with a set of headphones on, listening to this stuff, and for me it was nice because I got to, that's as close as I'm ever going to get to this guy. But these interviews are out there and they're free on YouTube, so I can listen and try and absorb and aspire and be inspired by him to hopefully do whatever I do or we do or our shop or team or relationships, to do them at a high level, because there's meaning in doing that and there's satisfaction. And next thing you know, mile and a half went by and I didn't even notice, So
hey, how about that?
Yes, right. So I'm receiving benefits from that are that weren't planned. I enjoy my walking time so much now because it's time. I do it at night. My neighborhood's quiet and safe, so I got nothing to worry about. And it gets me one-on-one time with people that have so much to offer that I don't have during the day. You know, there's too much just other things going on. So this is how I've been preparing to hopefully do a better job, not only at SEMA, but in all the silly stuff we do, you know, with the cars and videos and whatnot.
Right.
So tonight was actually a little different direction. I was listening to an awesome Michael Jordan interview.
Oh, nice.
Yes. I got a list of people. I mean, there are those who are, you know, these super achievers that have always fascinated me. And, you know, you lay the question down, are you or can you be the best at anything? Can I be the best at anything? I don't know. I can't possibly see that. I know you're darn good at what you do in your daily. And what I think is interesting about a guy like you is your daily profession is not necessarily what your morning to night passion is, but you still kill it.
Well, yeah, if you got to do it, you might as well do it the best you can do. So, and it helps that I do enjoy it. I really like helping people. So I get to help people all day, and that's what makes it really worth it. And I learn a lot, and I love to learn. So, and I always want to get better and be better and, you know, be the best I can be. So this is a good spot for me to do that.
Yeah, no, and it's cool and it shows. And in fact, that's how you got your fishing trip last week, is because you killed some competition, right?
That's right, man.
Yeah, so there you go. You're showing them young guys how to do this.
Mm-hmm. You whippersnappers.
That's right. And to me, you know, Jordan is in that list of people that are the best at what they do. You know, just like Neil Peart. Mm-hmm. And I know, or I've learned, that there is not a secret to this. It is known how you can become the best. It requires passion, it requires desire, it requires discipline, it requires hard work. You know, Neil says he's a slow learner but a great practicer.
That's huge.
It is. So, you know, Jordan talks about this particular thing I listened to last night, and it's got personal significance for me because when I grew up in the Chicago area, I lived through all the Bulls championships, and watched all those and watched him play. And there are those who say, yeah, he's a guy who throws a ball through a hoop, you know, why is he making so much money and what's the big deal? And yeah, you're right. The same way Neil Peart says he's a guy who gets paid to hit things with sticks.
Yeah, right
on. But you can't do it the way he does, and with both those guys, and his ability to lead a team and focus a team on a common goal, and then to achieve that goal relentlessly year after year after year. And he talks about how hard it is to get to be the best, but it's harder to stay the best. Because everybody's gunning for you, and as time marches on, your physical condition changes. Yeah. And so the speech was, or the interview was basically the day before he got inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And they were asking him about what it was like, you know, to be in the Hall of Fame. And he said, to me, the Hall of Fame was always something that you do at the end. And he said, I'm far from finished, you know. And there was an aspect to this that I never considered, and that is when Jordan, so he retired in 98. And his retirement was partially because his team had come apart. Phil Jackson was the coach of the Bulls, and he got a better offer to go somewhere else. Right. And some of the players partially because of Michael, they all grew so much and became so much better. They all became very marketable, and they ended up going to different teams. So the Bulls won 6 championships, 3-3. There was a little time off in between. And this guy had asked Jordan, was he ready to retire? Was it done? And he actually said, no, I think we could have gone seven games if the team stayed together. And he said, we could have gone 8, 9, and 10. Oof. So can you imagine the frustration of a guy who is the best and who is proving it, and the circumstance comes apart and he can no longer be that force because, you know? it was there's a lot to take from that.
Yeah. All the pieces weren't there anymore. So one guy, even though Jordan gets pretty much all of the credit for those championships, it was not all Jordan.
No.
And I mean, it was his the rest of his team all putting out 1,000% to win those championships that made it happen. He happened to be the face of it.
Right. And largely, he's the kind of guy that if you're going to grow, you want to be around. Not because he's a nice guy and a fun guy and everything else, but he was so demanding of his teammates, and he would demonstrate genuine disappointment if you screwed up, because he knew you could do it.
Right.
He had the ability to believe in himself and believe in others. And sometimes I know. So when I was in college, my buddies and I, we used to do in the summertime and whatnot. We'd go to local parks in the Chicago area and do little pickup basketball games. And there was 5 or 6 of us that would get together every night. We knew, we were all best friends, so we knew ourselves, obviously. And we'd be playing against people you don't know. And that was some of the best times I ever had. Basketball is fun, but what was really, really fun about it was I knew where each guy on my team was all the time. We were in tune with what each other was doing. I knew if this, was a breakaway and this guy had it, he's going to shoot it from this side and I can get the rebound and we can do it. Just that cohesive team thing. And a lot of people talk about team sports but I think I was lucky enough to have a true, piece of the machine team experience. And it's funny, it didn't come in a high school sport or it didn't come in anything organized. It was just us, and we all played this game because we enjoyed it and we had that desire. We wanted to go do it. So common goal and again, shared disappointment. These are great friends, but if somebody missed a shot, we would all give them a ton of crap. It's like, what the hell's the matter with you? You had that.
Dude, you're buying beers tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And that today, even more so, is I find it hard to be in that situation because we're in a different time now. And this was 20 years ago that we used to play these games. But it seems today that there's so much more consideration of hurting feelings and political correctness, where if something doesn't go right, you have to approach, or at least I feel it's expected that you approach things differently, which might be better, but it's not the same.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm not saying you got to be a jerk about it, but I think the fear is that if something doesn't go right and you go to that person and say, okay, you know what, to be blunt for our show here, but this is a letdown because this didn't go well. Right. Not saying you screwed up, but saying, that there was a better opportunity here to do something better and it didn't happen.
Right.
It feels like you can't really come out and do that stuff. You have to approach things from a softer standpoint these days for fear of demotivating that person.
Right.
And having them either do worse or become more self-conscious or leave or whatever, as opposed to fueling the fire and throwing a log on the fire. And that's what Jordan was saying, is he grew up in a competitive household with his brothers and his sister, and everybody had high expectations. And if you screwed up, all it did was fuel you to go do better next time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a special personality, and not everybody has that,
Well, yeah, absolutely. We had a guy at my job, young kid, what was he, 22? No, 24. And he just wasn't motivated and was not learning, was not improving. And we just never, and maybe it's a failure on our part, but he just never found what he needed to really excel. And we ended up firing him because he just wasn't getting it.
Yeah, unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's too bad because, we had high hopes for this guy, and either the job, he didn't like it, or his head was somewhere else, or he wasn't in the right, the right headspace to excel here, or whatever it was. It just didn't happen. And he just wasn't gonna, I think, decided that he wasn't gonna be better.
Well, and I think there's a couple things in play, and one of them is that, if you're not in the right job or whatever you're doing, if you're doing something that you don't dig, we all do things we don't have to, we do stuff that we have to that we might not like every day. But if it's a career choice, don't do it. If somebody's working in our shop and they're miserable, it's bad for us too, because you're not going to be happy, which means you're not going to do well, and there's nothing we can say or do. Mm-hmm. So we encourage people, if they end up working with us and it's not really what they're passionate about, you need to find what you are passionate about and go kill it. Go do that.
No hard feelings.
Not at all. No, it's good.
Our friends, and that'll be great.
Go for it. Yeah. And at the same time, we hear a lot of the talk about a whole generation that grew up with participation trophies and all that kind of stuff. And I don't, we don't have kids, so I didn't, raise kids in that type of environment. But I think with that kind of limits their exposure to the type of really awesome team scenario that I was talking about before. Mm-hmm. If you don't work hard to earn or win something and get the joy of doing it, you don't get motivated to do it again.
Absolutely.
So I think that might have been your boy's problem, is maybe his upbringing didn't put him in a situation where he was forced to do something that he truly didn't think he could, and just worked and worked and worked and did it and said, wow, I can do this. I want to try something else, and keep going.
Oh yeah. It's very possible. Very possible. Yeah. When I started that job, I was flipping petrified.
Yeah.
Because I doing what I was doing, being a field technician, I knew what I was doing because I'd been doing it for so long, and I was, not to pat myself on the back, but I was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And then I moved into more of a stationary place. I'm making phone calls and helping people over the phone. And at first, it's really, really weird because when I'm doing something, I'm used to being at the location, putting my hands on this equipment, figuring it out, talking to the people in person, and the whole dynamic changed. And I had to really adjust to that and figure out, how am I going to do this, man? I got to do this. Otherwise, what if I can't go back out in the field? What if I crash and burn at this? I can't crash and burn at this. I got a family to think about,
Right.
So that's a heck of a motivator. And and slowly I, picked things up, got my phone cadence down, and learned how to talk to these people a bit better. And I'm really starting to excel at this now, which is great. So
that is great.
A lot of fun learning a new skill and improving that skill.
Well, and hats off to you for doing it, because in that position I would probably not excel. Just because, to me, I can solve a problem once. I can't do it over and over again for people, because even though it's a different person, I'd probably lose my mind. So again, you've helped us tremendously in the shop with helping us with some of our equipment technology that I owe you for that. So thank you.
No worries. Thank you to see me. Hell, I think we're even.
Well, there you go. We'll say that afterwards,
Yeah, right. When my feet fall off.
Right. But again, you're the type of person who knows that, okay, this is a challenge, and if I beat this thing, I'm going to get something out of it. So, of course, the family motivator is there too. But that's why I think, working on cars, you can get that kind of experience in a one-on-one. You don't necessarily have to be on a sports team, but if you're going to set out to install a part or figure out how to do a tune-up or repair something, the repairs are great, especially when you got to drive that thing to work on Monday.
Yeah.
And you've got to get it fixed now. So there's your deadline, there's your pressure, and you have to reach out to new resources to maybe learn the trick. Maybe you got to find tools and whatever. But when you turn the key and it starts and runs and you go, yes!
That is a great feeling.
It is. And I know
Huge
that
weight lift off your shoulders too. Boy, howdy.
Sure. And there's all kinds of benefits. You learned a skill. You had the mental wherewithal to make it happen. You might have saved yourself some money. You burned some time, but it's personal growth time, I fully believe. And, like me, I have to do stuff on the car 2 and 3 times often because I don't get it right, and it might be right enough, but is it right enough for the standard that we want or the customer standard is a different story. So there's,
being the home mechanic and doing all that, maybe you get some new tools out of the job too, which is always nice, always a plus.
Yeah, right. And there's a guy on one of the forums on Lateral G, I think, who pointed out he justifies doing his own repairs because he takes like half the money that he would have spent on the repair to invest in his tool set.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, the car gets fixed.
Yeah.
It was cheaper, and he's got something that he can do more with tools. Absolutely.
I think the exact same way as that guy does. So I got to do a timing belt on my wife's car. It's at 100,000 miles and it's ready for a timing belt, and it doesn't look like a very bad job, but you got to get special tools to lock the cams in place and lock the crankshaft in place, and it's not that much. It's like $25-$30 for this little tool set, but I'll get to buy this tool set. The whole job will cost me, maybe $175, where take it to the shop would cost me $500 or $600. So
right.
Winner.
Yes, and then you gotta just do some of the techniques that we talked about in the past. Get that time cleared, protect that time, get your resources lined up in case you need help, and go through it. So, but you're the kind of guy who knows that because you've been through this before.
Oh yeah.
So you get that benefit, and the challenge is to expose people to this concept who've never done it before, and especially the kids, the youth. We need to somehow let them know that you only grow outside of your comfort zone, and that never stops. Mm-hmm. And if you find yourself in a routine, I got nothing against routine. Sometimes I feel I need more routine because I do so many different kinds of things.
Yeah.
But again, to use Rush for an example, Neil Peart would ride around and see things he'd never saw before, and then his routine was being the best drummer that night at the concert. So he was, it's funny, the opposite. What many people think would be the big challenge and the nervous part about performing was where he locked down and did his thing, because that was what he's trained for. That was his thing.
It's his job, yeah.
And then he got out of the comfort zone to go ride around. I don't know. It's fascinating to me. And on those lines, I think I can finally release a little bit of getting out of our comfort zone, which involves you again, my friend, coming up at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals this November. Yeah. We created what I hope is not a monster. But I am going to let out some secrets here, and part of what I'm learning also from these people that have achieved these levels of greatness is that we're all vulnerable, and it's okay to admit where you're at. So what we're going to do, part of the challenge of the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals is sharing the stories of these cars, because these cars are the some of the most either unusual or rare or prime examples of awesome muscle cars and Corvettes. But a consumer can walk into that show and go, oh look, a blue Chevelle, oh look, a green GTO, and not know how cool the story is of what that car is and maybe how it got here and all that stuff. And I've been fortunate to have worked with that organization and help, MC it a little bit and pull some covers off and do some reveals and shoot a lot of video and do a lot of interviews with people. So people tell me these stories, and then I kind of share them, through that media. But one of the cool things about the show is that they're very media savvy and they appreciate cameras and coverage. So overnight, between Saturday, their big opening day of the show, and Sunday, the second day, that night they leave all the lights on, and if you are credentialed media, you could hang out there and get photos and videos, and you have this whole entire show to yourselves. And there's only, maybe a few dozen members of the media, which is a decent amount, but it's big enough to where, you can not really see anybody else.
Right.
And get this insanely special time amongst these cars. So, I had talked to Bob Ashton about taking advantage of that time, and maybe we do an overnight live video broadcast from the show floor in which we can tell those stories to an audience around the world that is sharing this live video stream. And we'll have guests, and we'll have car owners that are guests and sponsors and stuff. And we're going to call it the McCacken, the acronym for the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals, right. McCacken After Hours Live. And Bob said, that's one of your top 5 best ideas ever.
Nice.
So, not to say that I have good ideas, but I believe in this one. I think this is going to be a really cool thing. Now so I got the go ahead from Bob, to produce this thing, and now we're figuring out how we're going to do it. So, I'm coming clean a little bit saying, we've done a lot of live video, which is, a lot of it's been cell phones and, whatever. And we're stepping up the production to use multiple cameras and use networked cameras that are connected wirelessly, and a video switcher, which is where we're going to employ our esteemed co-host, Mr. Mike Huball Clark, to be the technology guy and be kind of calling the shots on camera angles and stuff and controlling that side of it. Plus, if we do have some kind of giant network failure, maybe your day-to-day in and out experience might be able to help us there.
Maybe. We'll see. But, folks, I apologize beforehand.
Not that we're expecting those type of failures. And so now we're doing the due diligence of getting our hands on the hardware and doing some trial runs, and there's many things to consider, because we're looking at going live right around 8 p.m. on Saturday night, which is basically right after the doors close of the show, to maybe who knows when, maybe it's midnight, I'm not really sure, and it's going to stream on Facebook Live, which is great because other people can share it, and we've got some companies that are going to share it with some big footprints socially. We're obviously going to share it on VATV and on Muscle Car of the Week and on the McCacken channel. Plus, we're going to simulcast the stream to YouTube for our YouTube channel live on VATV. So there's some opportunities for some technology hiccups that we're trying to get ahead of. And then there's the whole other side of the content. We're doing a live show. So there's many opportunities for this guy to drop the ball there.
Well, that'll be a first. I've yet to see that. So there you go.
I appreciate that, but maybe
you thrive in a live environment, which is one of your best features.
Well, I enjoy it. I do like that pressure, and I think it's fun. And maybe, my basketball pickup game days have taught me how to pick the ball up when I drop it in a manner that maybe you don't notice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess that's part of it, right?
It gets dropped. I'll tell you right now. So we're developing all this kind of real time, and that's coming up in November. We don't have a whole lot of time to do it. So I am fully kind of stepping out of the comfort zone in a couple different directions. I'm getting into my comfort zone in others, but I'm really looking forward to doing this, and I'm hoping that it goes. I don't want to say goes as planned, because I'm not locking down to a planned vision of how this is going to go, because I really don't want it to be that way. I'm looking forward to it taking directions that we're not sure of. But we're lining up some guests and trying to secure a couple sponsors to help us out, because there's some costs involved. And Ben, our in-house camera video guy, he's excited about it. And everybody we've talked to so far has been like, yeah, this is going to be great. So it's going to be cool.
I'm excited about this.
I'm glad you're going to be able to be a part of it. And
yeah, for sure.
It's at the end of the day, it all comes down to the very basics of telling stories about cool cars. So, to me, that's second nature. That's easy. We're just going to make sure that the rest of it goes well, which I think we're we're sharp enough now to hopefully be able to figure it out. And if it goes down in a ball of flames, well, that'll be kind of fun too.
Facebook's most infamous moments.
Yes.
Number one, McCacken After Hours Live.
That's right. That's right. The biggest automotive media failure of all time. You know, maybe I can add that to the list. That'd be fun.
That's
really, really excited about it. So between SEMA and then that, and then we're looking at maybe doing a few things at the PRI show in December. We're really gearing up for an action-packed back half of the year. So getting full circle to my story about trying to sharpen up a little bit and be in a good space physically to handle all this is why I've been marching around my neighborhood at night, listening to inspirational speeches, and I apologize to my neighbors if I look like some kind of a weirdo.
You're wearing like a headband and, ankle weights and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's all Olivia Newton-John.
The windbreaker and 70s huge shorts.
Right. It's all white, by the way. No, surprisingly, I just basically just wear what I wear from work, and then I take it off and throw it in the hamper. So.
Nice.
Yeah. But I've been lucky, no injuries, no sore knees or feet or anything. Everything feels good. So.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to follow suit on that deal.
Well, again, moving an exercise machine just to move the machine, to me, I always mentally thought I could be doing something that creates, a work byproduct rather than just push these weights around.
Uh-huh.
So I was never one of those guys who could just go work out for hours, because I always had other stuff to do.
Right.
And now by tuning into these, to listen to other people, I feel like I'm getting something out of that in addition to the exercise. And, it's the first time really in a long time that I've been able to, I guess, the next best thing would be to put a team together and go play some pickup basketball, but I'm nowhere near in shape enough to do that.
My heart would explode if I tried to do that right now. Holy cow.
Yes. So, well, great. That was another great show about cars.
Yeah. This was a very zen episode, man. I love it. I'm snapping my fingers. I like it.
Right. Hopefully we don't offend our handful of listeners for veering off topic.
It's fun to switch it up a little bit here and there. So. Yeah,
you definitely have to. And I'm just, telling it like it is. So.
Yeah.
Well, to bring things back around, we have our trivia questions that are looming in the ether here.
Yes, they're looming heavy overhead.
So you can reveal your answers first, and I know I probably failed miserably again.
Okay, so. I wouldn't say miserably. I asked you in 1968 the Dodge Scat Pack cars, and what were those cars? And you said Charger RT, or you said Charger.
I said Charger,
yeah. You said Dart, and that is correct. You said Super B, and that is correct. But you did not say Cornet.
It was a Cornet. Yeah.
So,
okay, well, I don't feel that bad.
3 out of 4. That's not bad at all, man.
I'd
have said Duster, probably.
But there wasn't a 68 Duster yet.
Exactly. You get it. You finally get me now.
I do, yeah. The world would be different if the Duster was born in 68.
Exactly.
Part of my hang up on this was that, to me, a Cornet and the Super B are both B bodies, so I didn't know if it covered.
I gotcha.
Another
piece of trivia I learned is that in order to be qualified as a Scat Pack car, it had to run in 14s or better in a quarter mile.
Yes, I do remember that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Neat stuff. The Scat Pack and the Rapid Transit System and the high impact colors that eventually came out. Great cars, but also cool collectibles that go along with it. And Tim Wellborn at the Wellborn Museum has like the Scat Pack and Rapid Transit System kits that you could buy, like the fan
really?
Club stuff. So it's a jacket and a patch and a catalog.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah. He brought all that to McCacken one year. I think maybe he purchased it from some guy who brought it to the show to hand it off. Oh, and I was looking at some of that jazz, and it's cool. So it's another reason to go to that show. All right. Well, so I almost got it right.
Yeah. Well, I give 3/4 credit. Not bad.
Yeah. Good. Okay. On your end, we had the 1986. We'll call it Omni GLH Shelby car. And what did the GLH stand for? And your answer was Great Looking Hatch.
Hatch. Hell yeah. Hell no.
Which, well, could have, the great looking part, it was all black. So it was the best looking that car could have looked, I think.
Right.
And it was just on the beginning of the whole hot hatch, movement of those cars. So the terminology fits. So I'll give you that.
I appreciate that.
In reality, knowing it was a Shelby product, you won't be surprised to learn that the correct acronym was Goes Like Hell.
Ah! Damn you, Shelby. Damn you.
Yeah, he pulled no punches. Oh. And one of the fun things about that car is, again, it was kind of poo-pooed by the Shelby crowd because they didn't consider it wasn't rear drive, it didn't have a V8, it was this little economy junk. And he said, look, kids, this thing's fast. And he threw down the gauntlet. They did that episode, or that issue of Hot Rod Magazine with the GT350. But what he also did is he challenged the Ferrari club. And he said, all you Ferrari guys with your 308s and the stuff that you could buy back then, he said, meet me at the track and we will see which one lays down the fastest lap time. Yeah. And nobody took him up on it.
Oh man. I believe that Shelby was a fast car because they used that 2.2 turbo in a couple of minivans, a couple of Dodge Caravans. And I knew a kid that had one of these, and that was a fast minivan.
Yeah, I mean, relatively, definitely. But that Omni GLH was a legitimate low 14-second car.
Yeah, oh, for sure. That thing had to weigh next to nothing.
Right, and they said, when you're ready to put the hammer down, make sure it's pointed in the direction you want it to go. Uh-huh. And it actually it cornered okay, but it had just this tremendous torque steer that was kind of dangerous. But Shelby was actually kind of behind it. He wasn't, he didn't do it just to put his name on something and collect a royalty check again, which he did. Right. At the time, he was actually suing Ford, so he was making a bunch of money off that. But that's a different story.
Different story altogether.
Yeah.
Find out next time on VA Radio.
Yeah, right, exactly. Who knows? So, all right, man. Well, this was fun. This was fun. Good to go in a slightly different direction. Yeah, and appreciate the time. If you enjoy this show, it's available on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, the TuneIn app, which I still think is my favorite way to consume this, because on my Amazon device, I have the TuneIn app, and I can stream it right through my TV set or in my garage with my system there, so that's fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or, of course, our Facebook page, or right on v8radio.com. And that's about all I got for this one. So I guess until next time, keep the shiny side up, and we will see you next time on V8 Radio.